Hello and welcome to video 16 in our video series. I'm not really going to say it's for Math 123 because it's not necessarily, although what we're going to be doing here could apply to most any class you're taking really. A lot of little tips that you can do. So you guys have heard of Guy Fieri's had his triple G and triple D. We're going to think of this as triple T, test taking tips. So let's look at a few things that as you're taking your final exam, as you're taking the praxis especially, keep these tips in mind. I know all semester I've been showing you guys like, okay, what are ways that we could approach this problem if this was on the test? Kind of remember that stuff and remember these in general. So first of all, if nothing else, if you don't remember anything else from this video, if you don't even watch anything after the first couple minutes, I guess that would be your prerogative. But the one thing that you should take out of this is don't spend too much time on one problem. And this goes a couple ways. First off, remember there's going to be 56 questions on the praxis exam. You have 2 hours to do it. So basically about 2 minutes per question. If you see a problem, you think you know how to do it, and you start doing it, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I think I'm kind of heading down the wrong path here, move on. Do not spend 5 minutes trying to work this problem that maybe should have taken 1 minute, because you're just going to be wasting time that now you're not able to get to other problems on the road. If it's a multiple choice, you can always come back at the end and just guess at an answer. And again, I've shown you guys some ways to kind of weed out answers. So you could always do that if need be, but you don't want to get to where you're not able to finish the last 3 or 4 problems and you're guessing on 3 or 4 problems because you're wasted all your time on one type of problem. And also, I've asked you guys, like, what are strengths, what are your weaknesses? You should know that going into the test as well. So if your weakness is, I know some people had said word problems with percentages. Okay, fine. So when you're taking the praxis, as soon as you come to a word problem with percentages, skip it. Wait until the very end. Do not try that problem if it's a weakness for you. Don't even bother starting it. Save that till the end. Maybe you get done and you have 15 minutes left and it's like, great, I got 15 minutes to do the problems that really give me trouble. But if you try this problem and now it takes you 3, 4, 5 minutes because you're not very good at them, again, you're wasting time that you should be using on other problems. So that's the biggest thing there. Don't spend too much time on one problem. And more importantly, if you see a problem that's not your strength, move on from it and come back to it if you need to. So, other than that, let's sort of number these. The first one, be sure to answer exactly what is being asked. So we've seen a couple problems like this during the semester. We had a problem like, whatever, Jimmy scored, I don't know, 25 points, and that was 40% of his team's total. The other team scored 70 points. What was the difference between the team's scores? So when you first read that, you might think, oh, I need to figure out how much did Jimmy's team score. So what is, so 25 is 40% of what number? Okay, well that's my answer. And praxis knows you're going to do that. So they're going to put that number as one of the answers. So you see that the answer's, I don't know, whatever it ends up being, maybe 60 or something. So it's like, oh, okay, the answer is 60. Well, no, what is it asking? It's asking what's the difference between the team's scores. So make sure that you're answering exactly what is being asked. Also, this comes into play with some word problems. So it might give you a problem like, uh, Sally and Peggy, their combined ages are 20. And Sally is twice as old as Peggy. What is Peggy's age? So be sure that if it's a fill in the blank, make sure that you're putting in Peggy's age, because that's what it's asking. Don't solve the equations and then get an answer. And it's like, oh, okay, that's my answer, but what you end up doing is solving for Sally. You want Peggy's age, so make sure that you are answering exactly what they want. 2. Use estimation and approximation. So first of all, don't forget that you have an on-screen calculator. You will have access to their calculator. It's super basic. It's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, square roots. That might be about it. It's super basic, but you have access to that. So if you're actually having to multiply decimal numbers, go ahead and multiply them if you want. Don't spend your time doing it by hand. But again, in some instances, you might be able to estimate or approximate, okay, what should the answer be? So we had another problem with like the pie charts, and it was asking what percentage are these guys? Well, you can kind of look at it at the picture and see, all right, it's not more than 50%, so I can eliminate those answers. So I'm maybe down to just a couple answers. So use those kind of tools that are at your disposal. Use estimation, use approximation. Number 3. Guess as a last resort. So you are not penalized for wrong answers. So there's no reason to leave a question blank. Same on your final exam for this class. You don't get penalized for a wrong answer, so if you're not sure how to do it, then just guess at it. You have a 1 out of 5 chance if it's a multiple choice. Now, when they create these standardized tests, they're not going to pick all A as the answer or all B as the answer. They're going to space them out fairly evenly, so probably 20% A, 20% B, 20% C, D, and E. Might be a little bit, it might be like 18 for one, 23 for another, 21, but more or less it's going to be somewhat evenly distributed. So, when you do have to guess, there's a couple steps that you should do. First of all, eliminate answers you know are wrong. So we had that probability problem. And one of the answers, I think it was E, said the answer is 2.5. Well, we know that a probability can't be bigger than 1. It has to be between 0 and 1. So right away we know this answer is not possible, so eliminate any answers you know aren't correct. That way, instead of guessing 1 out of 5 chance, maybe now you're down to 1 out of 4, or 1 out of 3, or maybe you can get it down to 2, and it's like, boy, I know it's one of these two, I'm not sure which one. Well, at least you have a 50-50 chance at guessing. Also, work backwards, if possible. So let's say that we had a problem like this. Oh, it was a system of 2 equations. So you had to solve for x and y. So you have to use substitution or elimination, go through all the steps, do your calculations, etc. But what's another way you could do it? Well, it's to work backwards. Take the answer and plug them into the problem. So plug in x is 1 and y is 2. Does that work? No? Cancel it out. plug in x is -3 and y is +1. Does that work? No. Cross it out. And you can do that. Take the answers, work backwards. So essentially you're guessing at what the answer is by trying the answers that they give you. And again, that's if you have to guess. So eliminate as many as the answers that you can. And the other thing, if it's just going to be a blind guess, so as I was telling you, they sort of distribute the questions, the answers somewhat evenly. So don't, if you have no idea, if you can't eliminate any of the choices and it's just a blind guess, or better yet, let's say that you get down, you haven't finished the last 5 problems, and you have 1 minute left to go. Well, obviously you're not going to get through the last 5 in 1 minute. So don't try to guess at what the answer is, like, okay, let me do A and C and B and D and E. Because your chance of getting that right, you guys know from probabilities now, pretty low. So instead, if you're just going to make blind guesses because you don't have time or something, pick all of the same letter. Pick all A, or pick all B, or pick all C, etc. Because maybe one of those answers is A, maybe even 2 of them are A, but if you try to jump all over the board and make it look scattered, you have less chance of hitting it, as opposed to just picking all A's, and you might get 1 or maybe even 2 correct by just picking the same letter. And then 4, and sometimes this is easier said than done, but avoid common errors. And what are these common errors? Well, the first one is keep formulas straight. So we just got done talking about area formulas. Well, area of a rectangle is length times width. If you try to figure out the area of a rectangle using pi r squared, you're in big trouble, because that's not the right formula. So write yourself a little cheat sheet with all these sort of important stuff we've been talking about all semester, and use that as like your quick reference guide and your study guide, so that when you go into the practice, you've already memorized those important types of formulas and things like that. Second, and I have been telling you guys this probably almost every day, so you're probably sick of hearing it, but I'm going to tell you one more time. Watch out for negatives. So if you come to a problem and you see it and it has negative answers or negative variables or any negative sign in the whole thing, slow down. Be careful. Be careful you're actually subtracting. Be careful you're dividing by a negative number. So if you're trying to solve a system of equations and you divide by 4 when it should have been divided by -4, you're going to get the wrong answer. So if you see a negative, slow down and be very careful with the math that you're doing. And third, not too much of this, but keep your definitions straight. So where this really comes out is when we are talking about statistics with our mean, median, and mode. So, what is mean? What is median? What is mode? What are they asking for? Is there a formula for it? Or are we just putting things in order? Are we looking for the one that appears the most number of times? Keep those definitions straight. And it kind of goes back to formulas as well. Make sure that if you're being asked for area, you give the area formula, not the volume formula, things like that. So that's it. That wraps up all of our videos. All these tips, hopefully you can use some or all of them. Thank you guys for your time this semester. I wish you the best of luck on your test, and thanks for joining me.